Welcome to Into the Yes. I'm Marissa Fay, a functional nutritionist and holistic wellness practitioner.
And I'm Jen Nickel, a movement witch and intuitive Reiki master.
You are in the right place if you're ready to question society's wellness standards and prepared to be inspired to make changes that are right for you.
Join us as we get into the yes.
Let's go. Welcome back to Into the Yes. I am Marissa Fay, and I am joined by
Jen Nickel.
Jen Nickel. Lovely to see you today.
Lovely to see you today. To hear you, my friend.
That's right.
All the better to hear you with. That, for some reason, it started to sound like that to me. I don't know why.
That's okay.
Some weird, creepy,
Some
old
weird Little Red
fairy
Riding
tale came
I'm
to mind.
Do you know what's funny too is my brain's like, how do I connect that to our topic today? Like I was just looking for it, but I don't think it's there.
No,
Oh,
we can.
it is?
The wolf
Okay.
has an energy, Red Riding Hood has
Yeah.
an energy, and so does Grandma.
That's true. Okay, so spoiler alert, y'all. We are talking about energy today. And we're talking about it through the lens of your health and well-being. And so I want to start with Jen. How do you define energy or your energetic being?
My energetic being.
Yeah.
It's like an undercurrent. It's like the current that animates me. That's how I think of it. It's my animation.
I love that. I feel like you just got so sophisticated, and what I was going to say is not that sophisticated.
Well, I like how you described it.
Thank you.
When we chatted before,
we did. Spoiler. So to me, like my energetic side is a part of me that I can feel but can't see.
Yeah.
And really like energy. That's what I would describe energy as. Like it's something I can feel but can't see.
I think that is the description. I mean, energy is there, but we can't hold it or touch it or like describe it. Well, we can. All right, we can. We can actually all those things, can't we?
Yeah, right. So I think like the way I think about this too is, there are plenty of things that we cannot see but feel that we actually can measure, like the electromagnetic field, right? So for example, your Wi-Fi router gives off an immense amount of electricity. That actually can be measured and is measured, and it does impact us actually, our health and well-being. And there's more and more information coming out about that actually, where they're studying it, which is more so in Europe. But that's really interesting, right? Like that is impacting us. We can't see that.
We can't see Bluetooth, but it's working, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How?
Like how? Yes,
how
exactly. It's happening in some space that we cannot see with our eyes, but we probably could feel.
You know what's funny is that if I'm using a Bluetooth device, like I tried one of those Bluetooth watches and I can't wear it, it bothers me. I feel something weird in my bones.
Well,
so is this in my head or is this a real thing that I am picking up on?
No, it's a real thing you're picking up on. And actually, as a fun side tangent, anybody who does have a wearable device, I highly recommend that you get one where you can turn Bluetooth on and off. So you can tell it when to sync with your phone, for example, or your computer. Because if not, it is constantly pinging out that signal. And that is detrimental. We don't know to the degree to which yet, but there are more and more links happening. And I will just give you a personal example of something like that. So I used to keep my phone in my bra.
Oh.
Yep. So I managed this wellness center when I was in my mid-20s in Chicago. And I was always running around. I was at the front desk. I was in the back. I was running all around the office. And I would wear dresses a lot. So I didn't have a pocket. And I would put my phone in my bra, the right side of my bra. Don't you know, years later, like towards the end of when I was managing that space, I had a breast lump. Yep. And I went to have it looked at. And they were very concerned about it. It was a particular kind of cells that can grow rapidly like cancer, but it's not cancer. and I had to have it removed.
Oh,
And
wow.
I genuinely believe one of the reasons that developed was because of my cell phone.
I mean, let's break it down a little bit, right? Cells feel energy. They are energy, right? Cells are constantly producing energy. That's how they, that's what they do.
Yes, literally.
And then there's this energy coming off of this device, and that's probably confusing to them. They're like, this isn't what we're trained to do. So now what do we do? I guess it's more like this, and they all like form into something,
Yeah.
trying to like maybe either create a shield, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they're being smart and they're like, this doesn't feel right. Let's prevent it from going further. And they build a shield. I'm making up
I love the shield, by the way. I'm like, I don't think that's what's happening, but I like it.
a shield to protect the rest of you.
I mean, I do believe
Or
the body has such innate wisdom. When we have symptoms, right? The body is talking to you. Your body's really smart. When you start to deal with a health issue, I do believe our bodies are prioritizing things in a way to keep us alive. And so, I mean, I think all of that's potentially, plausible. Um,
Mhm,
what I think was really happening is that the electricity literally changed how my cells functioned. And it makes sense because so much of how our cells move around the body requires actually hydration. And right, think about electricity with water, right?
mhm,
That's going to change where things go, how they move, what they do, right? And
mhm.
so I think that's probably a piece of it. It also was a perfect storm of like eating a shit ton of soy because I was a vegetarian and needed protein. So
Gotcha.
but it was like this storm of things. And truly, that around that time in my life is when I think I really went deeper on this energetic thing. I started to like open up to the idea of energy when I was like 20. I went to my
Mhm,
first yoga class, and the yoga studio I went to is like an amazing yoga studio. And now, like, it's kind of world renowned. The person who started it, like, travels the world sharing his methods. But I just remember I couldn't afford much. It was like a
mhm.
$5 community class. And he played David Bowie and we did yoga. And it wasn't like core power. It was
Mhm.
like real hatha vinyasa combo kind of. And I was like, damn, like that to me, that was the start of me actually working on my energetic body.
Huh. So what stood out? Like what made you start working on your energetic body
So I
from that?
think having that experience, you know, I came into my early 20s with a lot of dysfunction in my family's household. And at 20 had to really in a lot of ways separate myself, definitely financially, but also start to create some emotional walls
Mhm,
for my safety and protection, like not in a bad way, in a like actually quite a smart way of like, I can't keep letting myself get pulled in, and I need
mhm,
I need to start, sending out a signal of like what I'm willing to accept is what I will receive.
mhm,
And I think that like those steps I needed to take, coupled with truly like the yoga experience, starting to like learn to breathe through things, starting to learn the idea that like our body stores memory, that our body actually has an experience of these things that happen to us.
mhm,
That really started to, I feel like, just expand my mind. And the way I felt on the yoga mat, just like breathing,
mhm,
pausing not in a way where like I felt scared or I felt like I had to fill that time, or do you know what I mean? Like
mhm,
it felt like maybe the first time in my life where I literally could like release.
mhm.
I'm not naturally a releaser. Like I have had to learn that.
Yep. Letting
So
go of something or
yeah,
stored, if you look out in the world, like on TikTok, or if you did a Google search, people would call it stored trauma.
mhm,
And in the yoga community, it's interesting because you'll hear a lot of people saying, as you release the hips, you might feel emotional. There could be an emotional release. There's people on the other end of that are going, that's complete bullshit.
right, right.
You're feeling tight muscles. But I think there's merit to both arguments. I really do.
I also think we can literally think of that and this is like, I think this is one of my gifts. Well, at least I tell myself this.
Mhm.
Like that to me, there's actually a very physiological explanation to that that explains why it would affect your energy and your emotions. Because if you think about it, we spend so much of our day sitting. And when we do that, we actually, right, like stop
Shut
a lot
down.
of, right. We stop a lot of the nutrient delivery to the full body, right? We stop a lot of the lymphatic flow to the full body,
Mhm.
right? We stop a lot of some of the oxygen to some extent, like getting to all those places because of where we sit and what that pinches, right?
Yep.
And so it actually does make sense, right? That the hips then where this point of where we stop and constrict,
We
right?
stop and we constrict and we have pressure. We have pressure in our butt because we're sitting down on it. And then in that groin area, there are so many lymph nodes that connect to the lower portion of the body with the upper portion of the body. Yeah.
Yes. So like that makes sense, right? And you would also think about that from like you could even think about it from a scientific energy standpoint, like the actual energy, that we could
Movement.
measure scientifically. Yeah. Like that makes sense. And so why wouldn't it make sense that
When you
there's
start
more?
moving your hips or putting them in a new position,
Yes.
will stir something up.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, I think about that too, even from a broader lens, like outside, it just so happens for me that yoga was like a part of my initial understanding of that. But I also think, there are more spaces and ways too. And, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I had a real animal connection, which I used to think was very unique. Now I don't. I actually think it's a kid thing where like before we're messed up by all the hard shit in life, we just have more natural
Awareness.
curiosity and awareness and openness to these things, right?
Yes.
But I really was connected to animals. Like I would always find animals. We lived in southern Arizona, so in the desert, and I would like find injured animals and I would walk up our long driveway instead of catching the bus and knock on the door. My mom was home. Mom, there's like a
Mhm.
bunny with like cactus stuck in it. And she's like,
Oh,
great.
right.
So like, I feel like there is this innate awareness, right?
Mhm.
That a lot of us start out with, and we just get away from it because I really wonder if it is because we try to intellectualize and make so many things logical
Yeah.
and versus when we're younger, we don't even know that that level of logic is available, right? We're just like, we're
Right.
curious, we're
Right.
open, we're just experiencing, right?
Everything is new.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I feel like in adulthood, it actually is the journey back to that childlike state in order to take care of my energetic well-being.
So the state of curiosity and wonder
Yeah. Yeah.
without judgment or a need to define,
Hmm.
which is tough. It's human nature to want to define something
Oh, yes.
and
Yeah. And
to
I
know
mean,
how to understand it. Yeah.
and also like we're two Virgos sitting here, which
Yep.
like whatever, whether or not you believe in astrology, I believe we have some of this overlap of like, yeah, we could define things with the best of them.
Well, I mean, I want to know why. I
Mhm.
always want to know why. And
Me
then
too.
there's not going to be an answer to all of these why questions,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
It's just
totally.
going to end up being just because you remember, or you might not remember, or you might remember this stage, or you have nieces, nephews, whatever, but
Okay.
there's a stage that the kids go through where everything is, but why?
Oh, I mean,
Why?
I was that kid, so
Yeah.
I know it well because my mother tells me how freaking annoying I was because everything was like, why? And then she'd
Yeah.
give me an answer and it was like, but why that?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like my kids would ask, I'd be stressed out because I wanted to have an answer.
Yes, of course. You're like, actually, I do want to answer this for
I
you.
I want I want to know too.
Yes. Yeah,
We're
totally.
all going to find out why, but I maybe couldn't.
Which, by the way, actually, from an ex of mine who was a parent, I actually learned something about this. And you probably did this because you're smart and intuitive, but they would, when their kiddo would ask why and they really didn't have an answer, they would be like, I don't know, let's go look it up together.
Yeah,
I love that,
that is nice.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I wonder
just,
if like,
instead of going just because, or I don't know, or that's not
right,
important, it
and
doesn't
also,
matter.
why don't we do that as adults? Like, why don't we, when you're like, like, I wonder why clouds form this poofiness.
Hmm. Well, we stop wondering about, we get very used to what we see
Yeah.
and what we have experienced. And I think, again, this pulls in that idea of curiosity and wonder.
Well, and I think part of it is, I really do feel like our modern world and the way we emphasize work and like your work identity versus like the rest of your identity creates a
Mhm.
lot of problems. And I think that this might be part of it, because it almost feels like when you go to work, you can't be all that you are, including, right, this energetic being.
No, I
You
mean, you can try, but you're also up against all the other energetic beings there and the energy that's there. This is a nice segue into what does this feel like? This
Yeah.
energetic self and being around other people. At first, before I can define my own, it helps me to pinpoint how other people's energy affect me.
Okay. And tell me more about that. And I'm also curious, and you can tell me if this relates or not, but I know your story, high level life story. And I think it's really interesting that you really, it seems like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, like stepped into your energetic kind of wisdom, midlife.
I did. Yeah. I had um a lot of connection with that in my younger years, but not really having a place to put it. I might have said this in our previous episode on Reiki and energy, is that I worked with, as an occupational therapist, I worked with children with disabilities. And I had one specific child that I worked with, even closer, I became his home tutor, and he was nonverbal. And I felt something so huge whenever I worked with him,
Mhm.
that so much that, and I was 23, and I remember the speech therapist that we worked with him at home, and
Mhm.
she came in, and it was so much that I was like, something is happening here. And she goes, yes, it's very spiritual, isn't it? And it was like the first time that someone had put that language to the feeling for me, because I didn't understand spiritual. I'm like, yeah, I think so. Like, I felt like I had met something beyond the worldly life that we live. And I could very powerfully feel that. And then, like, I'm in my 20s, so I remember many a drunken conversation. Guys, let me tell you about this amazing thing with this angel, you
Yes.
know. like,
Yes. Oh my God, I love it. Totally. Yeah.
but and that started me being really like, I feel this. And then I noticed that I feel it with other children that I'm working with. I especially felt it with children with autism. And
Mhm.
so I feel like that was a stepping stone into feeling, finding Reiki, and then having Reiki be almost like the landing place of, oh, it explained it better to me.
So that almost is like proving the idea that like other people's energy and experiencing that actually might be the doorway into starting to understand your own.
Yeah. Because for me, now the one thing that I'll say about when I work with Reiki that feels so comforting is that I never question it, because I felt it before I knew what it was.
Mhm.
It wasn't, and I have a vivid memory of that sense and that feeling.
Okay, so this is interesting because you said faith.
Hmm.
And I think about, why is it that it almost seems easier for so many people to have faith, and I'm using air quotes, faith in like a God up in the sky, but it's so hard to have faith in like the idea that like there is this side of themselves.
I don't know. I mean, I, maybe it's not that they don't believe that there's this side of themselves, but they're just putting the energy into this outer idea rather than turning it inward. Like, the thing that's attracting you to that faith is coming from within you,
Mm. Hmm.
but religion has us looking outside ourselves to something else. I think the idea behind a lot of religions are to kind of pull it back in to your own being and your own life. But I feel like because of our human nature, and we've made rules and guides and rituals around it, it becomes now another action that's outside the self.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you talk about spirituality, when you talk about energy, you're talking about the self.
Right. Because I, personally feel like it all starts with our inner being, which would be our spirit or our soul.
Okay, so I feel like that is a big concept.
Hmm.
And I almost want to ask a question that I don't know you'll have an answer for, but like I want to be curious, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, how do you know you have a soul?
That's a good question. Let's look it up. No.
Right? Right?
I was waiting for that.
Yes, thank you.
How do you know you have a soul?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like what makes me Jen? What animates me?
Which, by the way, okay, I have a theory, and this relates, don't worry, not taking us on a random tangent. Well, slightly random, but not all the way. I have a theory that some of us just like, we know who we are at such a young age. Like our essence doesn't change. And
Mhm.
there's like a difference between like that experience and the experience that other people have where it's like, oh, like as they learn and over the years and then they come to know themselves. And I feel
Mhm.
like I've always known myself. And honestly, people who knew me when I was a kid, like family friends, have always said this, like, oh, you've always been you. Like, you know,
Yep.
when they see me now, when they see me like on, social media, running my business, talking with confidence about things, helping people, they're like, oh yeah, like you
Yep.
did this when you were 4,
Yeah.
you know? It's interesting how some of us have that. I really think of it as like an anchor.
I mean, you know, it's possible that we had it and at some point we learned that wasn't okay to be like that. And then we find a way to protect ourselves and not be like that.
Yeah.
Like, and I like that is meaning like you had this innate way of being at a very young age, but you learned through behavior, which is what we learned through, um, what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable from the adults that you were surrounded by or other children that you were surrounded by. And so that's when we start to layer on these masks or personas that, well, this one serves me better, it attracts more friends, or this one makes everyone in the room happy instead of upset, or whatever it was that we learned. So it's maybe in that where we lose that piece of ourself a little.
Yeah.
I
Maybe.
wonder. I don't,
Yeah.
it maybe not for everyone. I mean, that's not saying that just because you still connect with that piece of yourself that you didn't experience trauma or behavioral patterns that you changed and shifted, but um, it's just a theory.
Okay. So even with that theory,
Yeah.
my question now is, how do we get in tune with our energetic side? Like whether or not you feel like you experience it fully, like what do you think are the ways that we can embrace that, connect with it, reconnect with it?
Well, I think that um, the first thing that you have to do is get quiet.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately because it's hard to do. Like we are the masters of distraction and looking for distraction. So sitting in the quiet with ourselves is very tricky to do. Otherwise, everyone would have a meditation practice.
Well, and I think it's gotten harder
Yeah,
with all the technology, right? Like
right.
I do this, like I'm just as guilty as anybody else, where like I can be overwhelmed and I'll go look at my phone. Like
Right. We're using
instead
that to
of,
soothe.
yes, instead of just being like, I am overwhelmed.
Yeah. So I think like the first thing to getting in touch with your own inner self or energy, however we want to define it, your spirit, your soul, or just plain old yourself, is to be quiet with yourself. And that might just be we probably say this every episode,
Yeah.
but it's just breathing, just
Yeah,
sitting with
right.
yourself and
Literally.
breathing. Everything comes back to take a breath.
Yes. And I will even offer that if it's uncomfortable to sit still and take a breath, walk and take a breath.
Yes, absolutely. This is why whenever I teach like nervous system calming or soothing, there's always a piece of movement involved because there's something safe in moving the body. Being
Mm.
still can feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you can't go for a walk, rock side to side,
Hmm.
sway side to side, or sit in a
Well,
rocking chair.
and also if you're somebody who is uncomfortable with that silence, with that amount of like mental stillness, then you are probably somebody who needs it even more. And it doesn't have to be an hour. Like
No,
it starts with a minute.
I mean, Marissa, it starts with one breath,
Yeah, totally. Like it
right?
baby
Yeah,
steps. You don't need to be like some master Buddhist monk on top of a monastery,
yeah.
like who meditates 12 hours a day.
Hmm. But maybe so as we talk about this, I'm thinking of other ways of doing it.
Mhm.
Maybe it could be reflecting on things that you're really drawn to. And that can help you connect with what your energy is. Like what makes you feel excited or feel creative. Like
Yeah.
what things are you drawn to? Like some people, they're very drawn to the outdoors. Some people are very drawn to animals. Maybe you're drawn to different colors or um, certain things like that. Music. And
Yeah.
see if that helps inform you a little.
Well, and also I would even ask another question related to that, which is like, what am I in awe of?
Ooh, I like that one. Mm,
And I think about that a lot because nature is really important for me. Like I intentionally moved to be somewhere where the sun is out more
mm-hmm,
and where I can be outside more,
mm-hmm.
like truly. So to me, it's like, and sometimes it's so annoying because sometimes I'm just like, I'm working, life is busy. The last thing I want to do is drive into the mountains and be off the grid, and I can't look at my phone and whatever else. But it's like in those moments, I'm like, oh, I need this even more.
Yeah.
I need it even more because when I'm in nature without connection to civilization, it's like at some point in that experience of being in nature, something shifts in me where I
Mm-hmm,
start to notice like the sound of the leaves under my feet
mm-hmm.
or the birds or the water dripping because it snows melting, And it's like those things help me not only like get back to like my true essence,
Yeah.
but also like feel good on every level. It's like I kind of see us as having like these, I don't know, shadow's the wrong word, but it's like kind of like there are layers of us, and there are only so many layers we can see and feel, but then there are these layers outside, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it helps me to like just clarify all those layers. Like gunk gets into those layers, things get trapped there, feelings get trapped there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I need to do something to like flush it out, clear it out, and get fresh stuff in there.
So it sounds like you're talking about forest bathing. The energy fields that are around us, the aura. If you've heard of an aura, I know you have heard of an aura. If
Yes.
anyone else has heard of an aura,
Aura.
and there's auric fields, and now I'm not going to remember them, but
I
like
definitely
each
don't
layer is defined. Like one is the um, enteric layer, one is the um, spiritual layer, like different. I can't even. I don't even know if I'm getting the words right now, but there's many layers, and it reaches out. So and for people who are sciencey, if you check out Heart Math, have you heard of Heart
Yes.
Math? Yeah, that talks
I
about the electromagnetic field of the heart and how that can be felt. It's out like at like what is it, like 3 feet or something, or
It's very far.
it's a lot further than you
Yeah.
can reach.
Yes.
Yeah. And
And that
so,
part
yeah,
of it, I think, is really interesting because I sometimes struggle being in large crowds.
yes,
And it's because of the energy of other people.
right. Absolutely. Now I want to talk about so many different things.
I know, right?
But when you're out in the woods, like for me, I purposely always walk under a tree, or if there's a grouping of trees or several trees next to each other, which is actually the same definition as a grouping of trees, I I weave through them because they also have that energetic field. And this idea of forest bathing is that it's kind of sloughing off the energy that you don't want in you, in your energetic field.
Okay, I have to,
And
I
then
mean, I
we
love
feel
it.
that.
Yes.
I do anyway.
I agreed. And I have to just say something because I feel like it is so funny. It's like in the wellness world, they try to make up a fancy name for everything, like forest bathing. And I could be wrong, but for me, I'm like, oh, you mean hiking?
You
Or
mean
you mean
walking in the
walking
woods?
outside? Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like sometimes we have names for things, and it's like because somebody wanted to make it sound more special or more rare or harder to do. And it's like, forest bathing,
It's just
you know?
walk by a tree
Yeah, literally. So I just want to
in your
break that
backyard.
down. Yes.
Yeah.
Like this can be so, so simple. It doesn't have to be something that sounds that mystical or technical or hard to reach. Like it is literally that. Like go outside, walk near a tree,
Right.
the end. Turn off your phone. Like,
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, it makes it sound too.
right?
Yeah, that's making me laugh now. Oh, the forest bathing. Have you forest bathed today? No, but I did. I took a walk, but I didn't bathe.
Right,
No, but you.
exactly.
The pretentious world of wellness.
Oh God,
So,
yeah.
okay, so how does this help us stay healthy?
Yeah.
I mean, goodness. So
Okay.
you were talking about a crowd of people, right? And how that
Yeah.
feels. And to me, that this is another way of defining our own energy is like you definitely know when you're in and around someone where you don't feel well. You don't feel good in their energy field. You feel depleted or upset. Yeah.
Yes. And this sucks when like it's your mother-in-law or,
Yes.
you know, something like that, someone you can't get away from. But also, this for me has been so helpful in dating because
Hmm.
like getting in tune with my energy and then just observing how my energy interacted with other energies. Like there could be somebody who like on paper, on the phone, even was attractive in person, but like I would just be like, it's a no. That's a
Hmm.
no.
Hmm.
And usually it was because of their energy.
Right. Not because of what they said or what they did. It was
Right.
first and foremost that energy.
Right.
Yeah. Which we all probably have an experience with if we allow ourselves to notice or acknowledge it.
Yes. I was exactly thinking that there's an allowance here.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be open and allow yourself to have that experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, right? So, okay, in the example of dating, it doesn't mean that that's a bad person. It
No.
means that your energies don't belong together. If that's all. Like we don't
Right.
have to make it into a positive or negative thing, but it helps you understand I feel better around people that feel like this. I feel better around people that are very high energy or, like in their actions and the way they speak. Or maybe it's I feel better around people who have a very calm and loving energy. And then that helps you navigate through the world.
Okay. This is very interesting because I observe that as we age, that and like change our understanding of ourselves and potentially like nourish and grow this energetic side of us, that who we want to be around and the places we want to be also changes. For example, have you noticed how like when you were 23, you liked to stay up until 1 a.m. and like you'd go out at like 8 p.m. with your friends? Maybe that's me. Did you ever
Mhm.
do that?
I did it, but I didn't love it like a normal 20-year-old.
Okay.
But okay,
So,
yeah.
and I would say too, I don't know how much I loved it, to be honest. I went home early a lot of the time, but
Yeah.
there's kind of that shift then where you get to a point and you're like, no, I no, I do not want to do that. I would like to see my friend for dinner at 6 p.m. I would like to be home by 9 and I would like to be in bed at 10. Like,
Yeah.
and it's about the energy of it sometimes, right? Of like, no, like when people are out drunk, being boisterous, like that's not an energy that feels good for me.
Right. I mean,
So,
it depends on, I think, the location and the reason, right? Because I was just recently at a family member's wedding
mhm,
and it was later at night and it was boisterous and dancing and I had a blast. It felt so good, but we were surrounded in, the energy at a wedding is a coming together to celebrate love. So that's an elevated experience, different from like the club.
and also that's you like with your family who
Right.
some of which you haven't seen in a while. It's a unique experience. It's different,
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, going into a place that's somewhat crowded with a bunch of people you don't know,
Yes.
yeah, become a lot less tolerant of that and
Yeah.
have a hard time. And if I see someone upset or I feel that someone is upset nearby, I'm like, we gotta go. I can't be here. I immediately feel that, like, place
Yes.
hands over my heart and have to breathe. And I'll say to my husband, like, I gotta get out of here.
Yep. No, totally. I had somebody I was dating who was very into electronic music, and they would want us to go to festivals, and we'd go to festivals, and I don't know if it was me and my energy or just like it's happening all over at those. For some reason, always behind us, some girl who was just way too drunk and whose friends were not taking care of her. And of course, I'm like, do you feel that? Do you and see her, right? And immediately I'm like trying to be friends with her friends and say, hey, your friend needs to go home.
Yep.
Like, let's call you all an Uber. All of a sudden I'm everyone's mom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So for me, an experience like that, I do not want to be at an electronic music festival. I can't.
No,
Yeah,
I've never wanted to be at a music festival, not a single day in my life.
not a single day. So I'm going to propose something because we have been chatting for a while about
Yeah.
energy. I'm loving this conversation, and I hope people listening are. And if they're not, I don't care. And
What kind of energy is that,
I
huh?
know. Well, the
No.
energy of that here, let me tell you, the energy of that is I believe that when we show up, and I think you do too, when we show up and we have fun and we have a conversation that flows easily, people are going to find it,
Yep.
you know? So I want to pause us and say, let's do a part two.
Yeah.
The part two can be much more like, how do you do this? What do you do to exercise this energy muscle? Because I feel like you have a lot of tools that you can share. I can
Hmm.
provide some experience,
Hmm.
but I feel like I would love us to have that conversation in the next episode.
I would love to have that conversation too. I like to talk about energy vampires. That's another fancy word for, you know, just all this stuff, how to protect yourself energetically, how to cleanse your energy, like forest bathing
Yes, right.
and
Uh,
crystal walking
yes. Can
and
we please talk
fairy
about that?
communic. No, I'm making
Yes.
things up now,
Let's
but
talk about all those. So that's our teaser. Stay tuned for part two, where we're going to talk about all those fancy things.
where we discuss crystal fairy angel baths.
That's right. And in the meantime, Jen, where can people find you?
Jen Nickel09. That's on TikTok and Instagram.
And I am Marissa Faye Wellness on TikTok and Instagram. And what are you a yes for after this conversation?
I'm a yes for walking by a tree.
Yeah, right. I am a yes for not dimming your light.
Ooh. Oh, I like
Right?
that one. Do
I
not
like
dim
it
your
too.
lights.
Don't dim
Or
your
like,
light.
yeah, or change the bulb if you need to.
That's right. And we will see you next episode to talk more about energy.
Let's do it. Okay. Peace
Okay.
out.
Peace out.